Relational intelligence is our ability as humans to connect with others and establish trust. Emotional intelligence and relational intelligence are two different intelligences. Strong emotional intelligence enables relational intelligence to develop and expand. If you lack healthy emotional intelligence, your relational intelligence will be stunted and very limited to either persons who are also underdeveloped and limited in their connection and establishing abilities, or you will find it difficult to build and connect with those who are more intelligent than you. Today, I want to share about relational intelligence, but I want to come from and through a set of loving eyes and foundation to offer what it looks like from a place of love. Hello and greetings, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the In Right Standing Podcast, a podcast for the unique, the chosen, and the peculiar who want to live right and be in right standing with life, themselves, and with others. I'm your host, Jada L. Cofield. When I lived in Botswana, I had the pleasure of being invited over for dinner by one of my colleagues and his beautiful wife. They are both white South Africans, and both were in their mid-50s at the time. After we had eaten, we were having our tea and dessert, and the men had gone off to talk, and Lizzie and I were left alone at the table. I'm not sure how the conversation ended up where it did, but what she shared with me that day caused me to forever examine my understanding and own personal level of relational intelligence on a greater scale. We define relational intelligence as a combination of emotional and ethical intelligence that involves the ability to be aware of, understand one's own and others' emotions, values, interests, and demands, to discriminate amongst them, to critically reflect on them, and to use this information to guide one's actions and ability to connect. Relational intelligence is the ability to successfully connect with people and build strong, long-lasting relationships. When we truly want to connect with someone else, it will require a level of relational intelligence to do so. The greater your level of intelligence, the deeper the connection and more successful and diverse you establish relationships as a woman. Lizzie was born during the horrific era of apartheid in South Africa. For those of you who are unfamiliar with apartheid or apartheid, it was a system of institutionalized racial segregation based on skin color that existed in South Africa and Southwest Africa from 1948 to the early 1990s. Lizzie began to share with me that as a child, she knew no color and didn't really understand what was happening because she was sheltered as a child. And remember, Lizzie is white. Newspapers and TV ads were kept from her, and she didn't really notice that her school was not integrated because she just thought maybe the Black children just don't live in this area to go to my school. Liz had never been to a Black ghetto and didn't know the segregated areas of South Africa even existed. When the housekeeper, who was Black, would come to clean, she would bring her Black daughter, in whom Liz would forge a deep connection and trust with. Are you hearing me? Are we together? They were both 7 years old and soon became best friends. What a treat to see my best friend every day, as their days were filled with much fun and laughter, but unfortunately soon came to an end. One day, as the summer holiday was approaching, Liz was asked by her mother, "Which one of your friends would you like to take on holiday with us?" With no hesitation, Liz immediately said Lorato, which is the housekeeper's Black daughter. Liz's mom said, "No, dear, please pick someone else." And Liz was confused. There is no one else but Lorato. You see me play with her every day. There's no one else. Then Liz got the talk. Her mother walked her to her bedroom and sat her down and explained to her the best way she knew how that Liz and Lorato were seemingly different by color. She could never be her friend outside of the house. They would never be able to showcase their care otherwise, and that she was going to have to understand they are different and she cannot connect or bond with her any further. Liz was confused yet again. She was being forced to do something she did not want to, forced to be a racist and discriminatory by no volition of her own. In that moment, her innocence was compromised, stripped from her mind and crushed in her heart. She was defenseless against the adult who she admired, loved, and made to believe was telling her the truth. And for the next several years, she held the truth of how she really felt and wanted to be, and truly believed in her heart, because thinking and believing otherwise would have now cost her her life. Liz was abused. Liz was violated, and Liz was forced to keep silent, and all these offenses were brought on and introduced to her soul from a place of emotional and relational unintelligence from people who should have been intelligent in her childhood. But Liz and Lorato suffered child abuse and were violated. They both learned emotional and relational unintelligence from their environment. I'm at a place now in my life when I meet people who I consider to be in my inner circle and beyond the veil. I ask them the question, who taught you to love? Or how did you learn to love? Liz's conversation was one she wanted to have for decades, and she found solace in me, a Black woman, to do so. But the stain of the violation was still present because I could feel that she wanted to fully engage in a future relationship with me. But to be honest, she didn't know how. But could I blame her? What if she got close to me and then it could be no more? What if she discovers something about me that may jeopardize her beliefs and we can't be friends? Liz's relational intelligence was somewhat wicked, or as the word wicked means, twisted. Well, the truth is we all have an emotional and relational intelligence genesis. Some of us are doing the deep work to heal it. Others have buried it, some have just ignored it, and others live through it. And then there are those who are completely oblivious to it. Our Genesis stories vary. Some are from a place of love, others survival. Our EI and our RI were not just born from our parents, caregivers, or family. The dispensation we were born into as women also plays a very big role in our relational intelligence, a key component that is often overlooked by many when addressing or understanding our ability to relate with one another in our current era. Let me explain. In 1969, the children's television show Sesame Street premiered on PBS and was the first of its kind that utilized a detailed and comprehensive educational curriculum with specific educational goals in its content. Sesame Street was not just a random kid show. They sought to prepare young children for school, especially those in low-income homes. Why low income? Because there was a seeming thought process that if you came from a middle to upper class family, you should have good cognitive and social skills. But we know today, especially with the understanding of narcissism alone, that that is not True. However, after their first season, Sesame Street producers and researchers began to address effective goals more overtly. They addressed social competence, tolerance of diversity, and non aggressive ways of resolving conflict, which was depicted through interpersonal disputes among Sesame Street's residents who were all depicted as being very different, but living on the same street and neighborhood. A great way to learn relational intelligence is to be involved and have conflict. Healthy relational people embrace conflict. Non-healthy repel and run from it. However, we all must learn how to create a safe environment to have a conflict. Hence why the Bible in Romans 12:18 says, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Relational intelligence. So why bring up Sesame Street? I'm glad you asked. We are currently on the horizon of new leadership taking shape and form. The majority of those moving into this leadership will be Gen Xers, as the last of the generation have turned 41 this year. Gen Xers follow behind the baby boomers. Baby boomers are now starting to retire or hand over or step into even newer horizons. Gen Xers are those of us who were born between 1965 and 1980 and between the age of 41 to 56. We were labeled the lost generation and latchkey kids because there were many shifting societal values that occurred during our time. A rise in divorces, single-parent household, loneliness, and capitalism. We are the smallest group among the silent generation, boomers, and millennials in the U.S., and we were raised by baby boomers, the me generation, also labeled the most narcissistic generation, and not millennials, contrary to popular belief. Our baby boomer parents were some of the most narcissistic groups of people in one generation in history. And if I had time, I can prove it. It's not a slight. It is the truth. There was and still is a high level of pride and self-centeredness in baby boomers, black and white. Are you hearing me? Are we together? Sesame Street was birthed to address the very evident relational and cognitive intelligence problem within the Gen Xers or Generation X. We see this unfortunate childhood trauma play out in our current relationship status. Please note, before I read these statistics, Gen Xers have chosen to get married later in life, mainly due to what they experienced as children, which is not all a bad thing. However, according to divorce.com, there is a consistent trend regarding marriage and divorce rates among women across the U.S. across all generations. Black women usually display the lowest marriage probability and the highest divorce rate. Black women divorce at 30% higher rate than women of any other race, while 69% of women are the initiators of the divorce. Black adults have the highest divorce rate and the lowest marriage rate. Black adults also make up the largest share of never married group. Some of this can be a result of non-eligible bachelors or bachelorettes, but the other issue is the lack of relational intelligence to bond and build long-lasting relationships. Our generation lacks relational intelligence skill sets. Our level of intelligence is to leave. Our level of intelligence is to not learn how to be relational in a relationship. Proverbs 18:24, a man who has friends must himself be friendly in the friendship. Do you know you can have friends but not be a good one yourself, or in friendship? You can have a partner but not be a good partner yourself. That's what that scripture is referring to. The New Living Translation says there are friends who destroy each other, but a real friend sticks closer than a brother. Your relational intelligence is a biblical requirement, a standard of being. If you are not a good partner or friend, you are displaying emotional and relational neglect and unintelligence. There is one place in the Bible that says a husband is to make his wife happy. In that understanding, it's his leadership responsibility to display relational intelligence to his wife that will bring out the best in her and cause her to be happy. Ladies, look for the qualities of relational intelligence in a man, for that will bring you great happiness. This is where we get the saying, happy wife, happy life. Most marriages end in either money issues, infidelity, and or lack of communication, constant arguing. All three of those issues are connected to your relational intelligence. But we know this because shows like Sesame Street were trying to fix it then when it was a growing problem. Now that problem is all grown up. Let me paint the picture for the foundation in which many of us as Gen Xers experienced and somewhat learned relational intelligence just in our culture alone. One of the things I admire the most about my grandmother's generation, that is also known as the silent generation, they worked together and there was a greater sense of community. And if you didn't have something as an individual, the community or family had it for you. Even in the early stages of my mother's era, our culture now struggles gravely with how to love one another, communicate, collaborate, amongst other things, partly because we saw in the baby boomers and during the Gen Xers' lifespan, the introduction of individualism along with the reward of being independent in our culture. It's our culture to be a lone ranger and be rewarded greatly for doing so. So why not be independent? I'll start in 1970. Spanking of kids was widely popular with no boundaries or self-control on behalf of the parents. As a result, police faced an epidemic in child abuse during the 70s. Hitchhiking was widely popular in our culture. Just hook up with anyone. Drinking and driving was not a crime in the 70s. Wild parties, several songs about taking the virginity of a girl, neglectful parents, the birth of latchkey kids became commonplace, meaning we went through our most all-important and formative years as one of the least parented, least nurtured generations in U.S. history. Affirmative action was initiated, and as a result, our mothers entered the workforce and could excel. Now both parents are gone. The birth of cable TV, unsafe baby toys at unprecedented production distribution with no regulation, no car seat laws. In the 80s, there was a surge in drug use, children born under the influence of drugs. The first hole in the ozone layer was discovered, and here we are now because those who had the power to correct refused or ignored the signs. In the 80s and the early 90s, there was a substantial increase in administering children Ritalin, an explosion in labeling our children with ADHD, dyslexia, and a spike in autism and Alzheimer's, while overlooking the possible connection of the boom of capitalism and big box stores pushing GMO modified products to the masses and specifically targeted to African American communities. No regulations on red dye foods, Similac and talc powder, which are banned in other countries, to name a few. And let us not forget the AIDS epidemic that shocked our community to its core, and no one knew how to handle it. In the late 80s and 90s, we also saw an era of unprecedented divorces, families being ripped apart, children and mothers being abandoned and even fathers. I did not even mention that was what was going on here, not in the rest of the world. And now those same children, Gen Xers, are now adults, coming into the peak of their purpose and financial greatness, yet our relational intelligence is poor. But who can blame us? We lived through a social war and crisis just like Jesus did. Now we have things, positions, accolades, degrees, family, and children, but unfortunately, that does not equate to emotional and relational intelligence. We grew up in a loveless time. Why does this matter, you may ask? Because numerically and spiritually, Gen Xers are stepping into a greater place of responsibility, and there are some issues that need to be addressed. Gen Xers are the next leaders, and for us to lead onward, we must heal the relational intelligence challenges we face. Why do you think therapy for women of color is so popular now? One, because it was a taboo subject in our community, and two, the issues are too deep as a culture and for Gen Xers on a new horizon to be held silent anymore. Jesus was born during an era that was considered the most violent year or truly dreadful. He was born in a time where a decree went out amongst the land that all male boys under 2 were murdered in hopes that they killed him. Are you hearing me? Are we together? His relational intelligence was birthed out of a genocide, persecution, and his love for you and I given by the Father. That alone should also give you a picture of the zeal, humility, love, and commitment Christ had towards you and I in fulfilling his purpose. You were born for such a time as this. I end with this. This is just the beginning of the dialogue we are about to explore and the foundation that needs to be examined as we explore this topic much further. We are embarking on a greater journey of leadership, fulfillment, and relational intelligence as women. It's time for us to move forward and lead ladies with grace, power, kindness, and the Father's glory. Until next time, thank you for tuning in for another episode of the In Right Standing Podcast, a podcast for the unique, peculiar, relationally intelligent, and chosen who want to live right and be in right standing with life, with themselves, and most importantly, with Christ. Until next time, bye! Oh boy, we're going deep, ladies. But let's go. We got work to do. I love you and I love the Lord. I'm excited. That's all I can say is I'm excited. Bye.